They were supposed to be just two ordinary teenage girls, ready to soar above the clouds on a standard flight across the country. But the world would soon learn they were anything but ordinary. Identical twins Ava and Aria, smart, poised, and unapologetically proud of their heritage, never expected their weekend trip to explode into a media firestorm. The reason? An act of blatant discrimination at John F. Kennedy International Airport that set social media ablaze. They were denied boarding. Outraged, they made one phone call. Within the hour, entire flights were canceled. Airline executives panicked, and the world discovered the unstoppable power behind these black twin daughters of a billionaire CEO. The summer sun filtered through the giant glass panels of John F. Kennedy International Airport. Though it was early morning, the hustle was already in full swing. Lines of suitcases trailed behind weary travelers. Airport announcements chimed in measured intervals, and the faint aroma of coffee drifted from the cafes. 15-year-old twins Ava and Aria Porter stood near the check-in counters for Skyway Airlines, exchanging excited grins as they clutched their boarding passes. They were en route to Los Angeles for a special weekend workshop. Both had been selected for a youth leadership conference. While they had traveled countless times before, this trip felt different. It was the first time they were traveling alone, without their usual entourage or personal assistants. Their father was unbelievably protective. Still, he wanted his daughters to gain a sense of independence. Besides, with so many obligations, he couldn't accompany them himself, especially at a time of delicate negotiations for his own company, Orion Air. Most people around them would never guess the twins were the heirs to a multi-billion-dollar empire. They dressed like regular teenagers, matching denim jackets, comfortable leggings, and sneakers that squeaked on the polished airport tiles. A few onlookers might have spotted the expensive carry-on bags slung over their shoulders, but there was no overt display of wealth. Both Ava and Aria had grown up with their father's insistence on humility, yet beneath their unassuming appearance lay an unbreakable confidence. They'd been raised to know who they were, to value their identity as black young women, and to stand tall in any space. Lessons hammered home by both their father, Victor Porter, and their mother. While the world viewed them as privileged due to their father's fortune, their parents had emphasized education, empathy, and resilience. They wanted Ava and Aria to be prepared for the cold realities of the world, especially the prejudice that still thrived in some corners. "Can you believe we're doing this by ourselves?" Aria whispered, glancing at a digital display announcing departure gates. "Gate 45B. We have about an hour before boarding." Ava nodded. "We can grab something to eat, maybe. But first I need to find that bookstore." They giggled, typical teenage excitement bubbling up. Spotting a shop to the right, they strolled over. The sisters wandered among the shelves, each picking out a few magazines and a novel. Lines were beginning to form at security, yet they still had plenty of time. Their father had always taught them to arrive early and avoid last-minute anxiety. The overhead announcements buzzed. "Passengers for Flight 217 to Los Angeles on Skyway Airlines, please note a slight delay in boarding. We will begin pre-boarding in approximately 30 minutes. Ava and Aria caught each other's eyes. A delay, but nothing unusual. They shrugged it off and proceeded toward security. As they queued up, the girls didn't notice a peculiar shift in the atmosphere around them. Most officers were efficient, scanning IDs and boarding passes. Yet at the far lane, a stern-faced officer was eyeing them. They dutifully removed their shoes, placed their backpacks on the belt, and walked through the metal detector. No beeping, no issues. But as they went to retrieve their belongings, the stern officer approached. He was tall, wearing a crisp uniform, and bore a name tag reading Mallard. "Excuse me, ladies," he said, eyes narrowing. "I need you to step aside for an additional screening." Aria and Ava exchanged confused glances. They had flown many times. Extra screenings weren't unheard of, but they usually came with an explanation. "Is there a problem?" Ava asked, trying to keep her tone polite, though anxiety stirred. Mallard pressed his lips together, eyes darting between them. "Routine check," he said curtly. "Your boarding passes, please." Their passes were re-examined, run through a scanner. Satisfied nothing was amiss, another officer waved them on, yet Mallard's gaze lingered. The girls shrugged off the strange encounter. Maybe it was standard for random picks. Bag in tow, they marched off to find gate 45B. Unaware of the storm about to brew, they settled into plastic seats. Arya popped open her new book while Ava scrolled through her phone. Across the concourse, however, the seeds of an unusual situation had just been planted. Half an hour later, the overhead system announced that Flight 217 on Skyway Airlines to Los Angeles was ready for boarding. Premier members, families with small children, and those needing extra assistance were asked to line up first. The twins, being minors traveling alone, typically boarded early, but they waited politely until families with toddlers went ahead. Then they joined the line. A man at the gate kiosk gave them a quick smile, scanning their passes. "Enjoy your flight," he said cheerfully. The girls waved back and proceeded down the jet bridge, hearts thumping with excitement. Inside the aircraft, they settled into the plush seats. Their father, ever the doting parent, had upgraded them to first class. Arya sat by the window, eager to watch the plane ascend into the clouds. Ava took the aisle seat. Nearby passengers offered polite nods, some perhaps curious about two teenage girls traveling without an accompanying adult, but no one said anything. Flight attendants moved through the cabin, assisting passengers, stowing carry-ons, and offering pre-departure beverages. Ava and Arya accepted orange juice, giggling as they toasted each other. At that moment, everything felt perfect, like a small taste of independence in the world. Then came the first sign of trouble. A flight attendant with sharp features and a tight bun paused at the row. Her name tag read Marjorie. She glanced from one twin to the other, her expression hovering somewhere between confusion and suspicion. "Good morning," she said with a pinched smile. "Are you traveling alone?" "Yes, ma'am," answered Arya politely. "We're heading to Los Angeles for a youth leadership conference." Marjorie's eyes flicked over to Ava. "Do you have a guardian traveling with you on this flight?" "No, our parents aren't with us," Ava explained. "But we have all the necessary documents if that's what you're concerned about." Marjorie frowned. "I'll need to check with the purser regarding unaccompanied minors in first class. Please stand by." The twins exchanged puzzled looks. They'd traveled first class many times before, even without their parents, and never faced an issue. However, they nodded politely, not wanting to cause a scene. A few rows behind them, a curious passenger was live-streaming on social media, a habit of modern travel. The camera, angled inadvertently, captured the moment Marjorie walked away, her posture stiff. The passenger, an aspiring travel vlogger, had no idea they were about to film the opening act of an incident that would rock the airline industry. Marjorie returned with another flight attendant, a tall man named Jonah, who looked equally uneasy. "Excuse me," Jonah began, glancing between the twins. "We need to verify your boarding passes once more. There's some question about unaccompanied minors in first class. Do you mind stepping off the plane for a moment?" A ripple of discomfort went through nearby passengers. Ava's eyes widened in disbelief. "Step off the plane?" "Why?" she asked. Jonah's lips twitched. "Regulations, miss. It's best if we settle this at the gate desk." The girls gathered their belongings, faces burning with confusion and embarrassment. They could sense eyes on them as they made their way up the jet bridge. Hearts pounded with each step. Arya clenched her fists around her backpack straps, trying to stay calm. Ava's mind raced. "We've flown like this dozens of times. Why are they singling us out now?" At the jet bridge entrance, a gate agent approached, a middle-aged woman named Diane. She looked flustered as Jonah whispered something in her ear. Diane turned to Ava and Arya, plastering on a saccharine smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Good morning, ladies," she said. "We just need to verify some details. Do you have documentation showing you're allowed to travel without an adult?" Ava handed over their passports and the unaccompanied minor forms, everything the airline required. Diane perused them, flipping pages. Arya, trying to break the tension, said, "This is our first time flying with Skyway. Our dad usually." But the mention of Dad only made Diane's expression more guarded. She passed the documents to Jonah, who nodded and gave them back. "Thank you," Diane said. "Now, if you'll give me a moment to speak with my supervisor." "This is ridiculous," Ava whispered to Arya, her voice quivering. "We have everything. Let's just wait," Arya said softly. A few minutes later, a man in a suit emerged from behind the counter. He introduced himself as Rogers, the duty manager. He studied the girls for a moment. "Ladies, may I ask why you're traveling in first class on an unaccompanied minor ticket?" Ava's mouth dropped. "Because we bought first-class tickets," she said, struggling to keep composure. "Is there a rule that minors can't sit in first class?" Rogers's lips thinned. "No, but we have certain protocols. It's unusual for minors traveling alone to be seated up front without adult supervision on board." Arya's voice broke. "But that's not in any policy we've heard of. We've flown first class with other airlines. This is a standard fare class." Rogers cut her off. "I'm sorry, but we have the right to refuse boarding if we feel uncomfortable about the passenger situation. If you don't have an adult traveling with you, we might need to reseat you in the main cabin, or you may wait for a flight where a guardian can accompany you." Pricking her eyes. "We paid for these tickets. We have all the documents. Why would you refuse us? If this is about payment verification, we can call our dad right now," Arya added. "He can speak with you." Rogers hesitated, something flickering in his eyes. Frustration? "I'm sorry," he repeated, but there was no apology in his tone. "The flight is about to depart, so you'll need to leave the gate area." The gate door shut behind the final passenger. The plane was sealed without them. Ava let out a shuddering breath. Arya's cheeks burned with humiliation. They were stranded, powerless. A few travelers who had witnessed the scene approached, offering sympathy. One couple shook their heads. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," the wife said gently. "Thank you," Arya managed, voice small. But time was ticking. "We should call Dad," Ava whispered. She dialed Victor Porter's private number. It rang twice. He answered, calm yet concerned. The moment she heard his voice, tears spilled. "Dad, they kicked us off the plane." "What do you mean, kicked you off?" he asked, voice razor-sharp now. "They wouldn't let us board first class because we're minors," Arya said, emotion thick in her throat. "It makes no sense." There was a pause. They could almost hear the gears turning. Then came that steady paternal confidence. "Stay where you are. I'll handle this personally." He hung up. The twins sat in anxious silence, unaware that a single phone call had just set an entire airline on edge. Far away, in a skyscraper overlooking Manhattan, Victor Porter paced the polished floor of his corner office. Documents for a looming aircraft leasing deal lay scattered on his desk, forgotten. Protective love replaced corporate strategy in an instant. He dialed a direct line to his longtime colleague and friendly rival, Wallace Kent, CEO of Skyway Airlines. Wallace picked up, sounding breathless. "Victor, I just heard something about 2 teenage passengers." "They're my daughters," Victor cut in, voice tempered steel. "Your staff forced them off a flight they paid for, even after every document was verified. If this isn't fixed, publicly and immediately, Skyway will learn how quickly gate leases and code shares can disappear." Wallace swallowed. "Give me 30 minutes. I'll find out exactly who handled the decision and call you back." "You have 15, Victor replied, ending the call. Back at JFK, Ava refreshed social media. A passenger's livestream clip of them leaving the jet bridge was racing across Twitter under hashtag #SkywayDenied. Comments poured in, some furious, many empathetic, a few hateful but drowned out by support. Within 15 minutes, Wallace Kent phoned Victor again, flustered. "Victor, I'm appalled. The duty manager claims it was protocol confusion, but an internal memo shows he labeled the girls suspicious because first-class minors didn't fit the profile. I've put him and the 2 attendants on leave effective immediately." "Not enough," Victor said. "Issue a formal apology. Retrain every frontline employee, and announce it before the next news cycle. Otherwise, I cancel Skyway's shared gates at Newark and Phoenix by sunrise. Wallace exhaled. You'll have the apology tonight. An hour later, Skyway station manager, Philip Marsh, appeared at gate 49 with lounge passes, meal vouchers, and a stumble-through apology. The twins accepted the passes, but not the excuse. Rogers, the duty manager, muttered across the lounge that corporate was bending over backwards for nothing. Ava confronted him, and passengers applauded. By the time the girls reboarded, this time on Flight 225, national outlets were headlining the story. Billionaire CEO threatens Skyway after twins ejected from first class. Onboard Wi-Fi revealed pundits debating corporate power, systemic bias, and youth activism. Mid-flight, Celeste, the sympathetic flight attendant, handed them a note from the cockpit. Ground Ops confirms a press conference tonight. Skyway will apologize and outline reforms. Relief mixed with exhaustion. Turbulence rocked the cabin, echoing the upheaval on the ground. When Ava's phone buzzed again, Victor had texted only 3 words. You were heard. The descent into Los Angeles was smooth, but Ava's screen still flashed headlines. Apex Ultimatum. Industry analysts predicting Skyway losses in the tens of millions if gates were revoked. Arya whispered. Dad really pulled the pin. Ava nodded, anxiety mixing with pride. At LAX, Celeste discreetly guided them through a service corridor. A cluster of reporters waited at the public exit, cameras poised. Outside, a sedan from the Youth Leadership Conference idled at a private curb. The driver, holding a placard, Porter Sisters, hustled them inside and sped away. Behind them, flashes popped as journalists realized the twins had slipped past. Downtown, the conference buzzed with ambition, workshops on ethical leadership, diversity, and social impact. Ava and Arya tried to focus, yet sidelong glances followed them. One teen whispered, "Those are the girls who got an airline to kneel." Another replied, "Power goals." Each night their father updated them. Skyway's board met in emergency session. Rogers was suspended. An external civil rights panel was hired. By day 3, a leaked memo proved Rogers had called the twins out of profile for first-class travelers. Twitter erupted. On the hotel balcony, twilight glowing over L.A., Arya voiced what both felt. Are we crushing innocent employees? Ava's eyes filled. People could lose jobs. Is that fair? They called Victor. He listened, then spoke softly. Accountability matters, but collateral damage doesn't help anyone. I'll propose a reform package instead of scorched earth, provided Skyway meets strict benchmarks. Hours later, Wallace can't step before cameras. Skyway Airlines formally apologizes to Ava and Arya Porter. We are terminating Mr. Rogers, suspending 2 crew members, and launching mandatory anti-bias training company-wide. An independent oversight committee chaired by the National Aviation Equity Council will audit our progress. He thanked Apex Air for constructive pressure and announced a partnership on diversity metrics. Back home, in New York, the headlines shifted. From crisis to reform, how 2 teens sparked industry change. Some pundits hailed Victor as a champion. Others decried corporate strong-arming. The twins penned an op-ed. Justice should correct, not cripple. They urged systemic fixes, without sweeping layoffs. In the months that followed, Skyway rolled out new training, published quarterly equity reports, and quietly rehired staff into retrained positions. Airport surveys showed a drop in discrimination complaints. The industry took note. Several carriers adopted similar oversight models, crediting the Porter precedent. Ava and Arya returned to everyday life, debate club, track meets, college prep, but the memory of Gate 45 stayed with them. When classmates asked, they summed it up simply. Know your worth, use your voice, watch the ripple.